This program is brought to you by Emory University.
Hi, and welcome to our Goizueta 2-year international web chat. My name is Angela Bostic. I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at the Business School. And I'm joined here with two of my esteemed colleagues who are going to help us talk with you today about the process for getting ready to join us in the join us as an international student at the Goizueta Business School. I was going to start by saying good morning, but I was reminded that it could be afternoon or evening wherever you are. So I will simply say hello and welcome, and I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Harriet Ruskin. I work in the full-time MBA program office.
John Ryder, and I work at the Career Management Center. Welcome.
Wonderful. And we're joined by Kate Piasecki, who you all have probably met at least via email. She's off camera answering some questions in the back, but the three of us will collectively be working on the chat today. A little bit of housekeeping notes before we get started. You can submit your questions at any time through the chat window, and we will make sure we field the questions either on air or off camera in the back to get answers to you. If we don't get a chance to answer your question specifically on the chat, we will make sure we follow up with you directly after. We have all your emails, and so we know who you are. But please make sure you submit your questions, ask things as we're going through. The purpose of this chat is to get you the information that you need, so we want to make sure it's most valuable for you. With that said, I will go ahead and let Harriet get us started.
Great. So we're just going to go over some dates and processes that we think might be helpful for you all. And I just wanted to be sure that if you have questions, again, be sure that you put them in the window so that we can answer them. So we have on our slides, which you can probably see, as you pay your deposit, we will put you on our Blackboard website. And that has all of the information that you need about our onboarding procedures. It includes how to get your ID card, information about living in Atlanta, anything that you need to get ready for being a student, as well as our forms for requesting your visa. Those are on the admitted site and on the deposited site. And the date for students being able to get their visa date is July 18th, 2016. And you can come into the U.S. up to 30 days before that. So anyone coming for the pre-MBA English language program can come in under that visa date. And speaking of the pre-MBA, that program is held on campus, and it's usually about 2/3 of the day, and it will run from June 22nd until July 20th. So we hope for those of you who are interested, the registration will be open really soon. Other things you'll find on our deposited site are listed there. The health insurance information is coming soon. We don't have it up yet. Same thing with course materials, but you can definitely get your Emory email set up and get started on that process. So the onboarding process is our orientation, and for international students, again, it starts on July 18th, and it continues on for about 3 weeks. So all of the students are invited to participate, starting with the International Week, but we'll see most of the U.S. students the following week when we start the required sessions for all students. And we have an overnight stay at Lake Lanier that's required, which is 1 night, and it's part of the team building process. And the schedule will be out on the guidebook app, which will be available with the password when it's set up. The first day of classes is August 8th. So
That seems so soon.
do we have any questions yet?
We don't. There have been some questions submitted before about the process for visas, and so
okay.
I think you covered it there. Are there any other points that you'd like to add to sort of the visa processing?
No, it's just all of the financial documents get submitted to the admissions office, and then they will be issuing all the paperwork that the students will need for making their appointments for the consulate in their home countries to go and get their visas.
Wonderful. Okay. And if there are other questions you have specific related to the visa process, Harriet can answer them here, or we can answer them off camera. I know there were a few submitted in advance, so please feel free to continue to send those in.
So during our onboarding week for the international students, we will be doing some get-to-know-you activities. We will do some stuff about American culture. We have an expert on the American political presidential race. So he came and spoke last year, and it'll be very interesting for those of us who heard him last year to compare last year to this year and see where we are with the presidential race. We have some speakers who come in and talk about sports and sports analogies, because they're very popular even within the classroom setting. We talk a little bit about race relations in the United States. So there's lots of sessions that are available for students while they continue to get set up with their apartments and get used to where do they go to the grocery store, all those kinds of things. For students who want to get a car and get a driver's license in the U.S., there's details on our website about that. It is a long process, so you have to start off knowing that you need to be patient. And the one thing I would say is don't buy your car too early because you have 30 days to get it registered, and it takes a while to get your driver's license.
That's good to know. And I know there are a lot of questions that always come in about the specifics for getting a car and getting your parking set up and getting kind of facilities and things turned on. Harriet, what's the process that students should follow once they're here or even before they get there in order to work with you or other members of the school to get those handled? And then, or should you recommend that they do that when they get here during onboarding?
Because most of the international students will not have a social security number, it's almost impossible to get things set up before you get here.
Okay.
So you really need to wait until you arrive in Atlanta to get things set up. And then you'll have some decisions to make, you know, which internet service provider do you want at your house, and some apartment complexes do have one that they have a contract with, or sometimes you get to choose. Getting your telephone set up, again, are you going to buy a new phone? Are you going to use your phone from home? If you do, be sure it's unlocked. And we have information about this on our, again, on our website. Getting your electricity moved into your name, water and sewer, all of that you have to physically do when you're here. Since you don't have a social security number, the reason that you want a social security number is so that you can show that you have a credit history in the U.S., and that's how deposits get waived. If you don't have a social security number, or if you've just received a social security number and don't have credit history, it's basically the same, and you'll have to pay deposits, which are refundable for your utilities. So you just want to keep that in mind as you get set up. And then also with the bank account, same thing. It's much easier to set it up when you're here. There's recommendations about bank accounts. SunTrust is a bank that's across the street from the business school, and as of now they don't have a service fee, so that's a good place to check out. Emory also has a credit union, the Emory Alliance Credit Union, and for anyone who's using the Emory International Student Loan, you'll need to open an account there anyway, so that's another good option for you.
Wonderful. And I got a question in just now that I thought would be a good one to answer on air. It's whether you need to inform anyone at the school when you arrive in the U.S., and if so, through what process should they do that?
Right. So actually, when you are arriving, you will get some emails from an office that at Emory, but not through the business school. It's called ISSS. It's International Student and Scholar Services. And they have a form for you to fill out before you leave, a pre-departure checklist, and then they have an arrival form. And you'll fill that out and upload a copy, electronic copy of your I-94. It used to be a card, but now it's just an I-94 document to let everyone know that you've arrived. And then if you have any questions, of course, stop by the school, and we are happy to help.
Wonderful.
Okay, so then it's a lot of preparation, but we're going to start classes, and you'll see, again on the slides, that we have outlined the first semester, which is taught in 3 blocks. And so there are classes that are taught in just 1 block, like the economics class. Most of the classes run for 2 blocks, the first and second, or the second and third. And then some that continue throughout, like the management practice and the career services professional development program. So all of those are the academic schedule, and we'll let you know during onboarding what your exact footprint looks like for the classes that you're taking. And you'll be assigned a team, and all of your group projects will be done together in that project team.
Wonderful. And it's the kind of question that came in about during the classes, the ability to do research assistantships. And I don't know if that's during your first semester or if that's during later in the program, and how does that work in terms of scholarship?
So, so all students, including international students, can work on campus starting the first day of school, but most of the students who are doing research or teaching assistance with faculty members are second years. There's not as much opportunity for first years, partly because of the schedule. You're taking 22 credits in the first semester, and as you go through the program after the first semester, you're doing more like 15 or 16 credits. So the amount of time you spend in class is really increased in your first semester, so that we can be sure that you get all of the academic work you need for your internship search, which John will talk about, and all the core courses for to get ready for electives for the spring. So most of the students in the first semester do not work with faculty members. But if you have research in a particular area, you can definitely approach the faculty member and talk about what's going on and see what opportunities they might have.
Wonderful. And is that the same thing for sort of clubs and activities, knowing that the first semester is a pretty crowded time? Where would you recommend that students, international or otherwise, plan to get involved in clubs and activities and in leadership positions in particular?
Right. So we do have leadership positions and clubs and activities, of course, for all of the first year students. And a lot of them are aligned along professional lines as well as academic, and then of course social. So these are all activities that you will be doing anyway, and they complement your academic study. And so it is something that a lot of the first years get involved with. We have first year representatives for each of the sections, including an international representative. So there are there's a treasurer in training. There are official elected positions for the student government that all students are eligible to participate in, and a lot of the clubs have first year representatives as well. So there's a lot of activity there for leadership.
Wonderful. Sorry, I'll let you keep going. The questions are coming in, so we're making sure
Great.
we try to get them fielded. Sure. Again, there'll be lots of questions that'll be answered off camera, so continue to submit them, and you'll still get your emailed response in real time, just not necessarily on air, so we can keep ourselves moving.
So I'm going to skip over the career trek week that comes in block 2 and let John talk about that when he talks about career stuff. And then block 3 finishes up the semester, and at the end of block 3 there's some more days for career prep, which John will talk about doing internship preparation. There's
John, you got a lot to talk about.
He does.
Check my notes.
And then there's a slide about the spring semester dates, just to give people an idea. In the fall, we'll be working with all the students to determine what classes they want to select for their spring schedule, and we have individual advising appointments, so you'll be making that selection usually in November, and then you'll do those classes, of course, in the spring. And we have about a month off between the fall and the spring semesters for students to either travel or spend time with their family or do job search stuff. And we have a couple of academic classes that meet in January as well.
Wonderful. Before we move over to careers, I want to get a couple questions related to kind of getting here and getting started. A couple questions have come in about where to live. And are there any suggestions for international students, any different from any other population?
So no, there's nothing really different. A lot of our students live in Post Briarcliff, and you'll see on our website that they're a sponsor for Welcome Weekend. And that's one of, it's probably about 2 or 3 miles from campus. It is on the Emory Cliff shuttle, so it has regular daily bus service directly to campus. There are a couple of apartment complexes that are within walking distance of the campus or across the street from a shuttle area. So most of our students live nearby. There are a few students, especially from South Korea, who tend to live a little bit further away because there's a big community there, and if they have families, sometimes they'll live there. It's a trade-off because it's further away from campus, so it's harder for team meetings and things like that, but they seem to be really happy there. So I know that the different student groups will be reaching out to people over the summer to answer questions about housing and schools and things like that. But campus crossing, they're all outlined on our website. If you look in the Atlanta housing section, either for the admitted student website or on the Blackboard site, there's a little information about each place that most people do arrange before they come here. So you'll be looking into that probably April, May, June, or would be the time to be sure that you figured out where you want to live for housing.
Perfect. So the last question has to do with concentrations. And is there an opportunity for students during the time they're here, not necessarily in the first block, or in the first semester, but probably in the spring and going forward, to pursue more than one concentration? Yeah.
So the way concentrations work is they are not a degree requirement. It's completely optional. And there is a list of concentrations on our website. Each concentration has 3 or 4 courses that you need to do to satisfy it out of a list of anywhere between 5 and 15 courses, depending on the concentration. And it really gives students an idea of what types of knowledge the employers might be expecting in different areas and what courses we have that work together to give people the experience that they need. And you can put them on your resume, especially if you're changing career paths. It's a really good way to do it. because most of the concentrations are 3 or 4 classes, and some of them, like within marketing, you might have marketing management, you might have a marketing analytics, and some of the classes overlap. You may complete more than one concentration without even really trying to. So you are welcome to do that when you meet with one of the advisors in our office as you're looking at your spring schedule. We'll talk about all of that.
Wonderful.
And that's something you could also talk about with your career coach along with somebody in the program office to figure out which or how many concentrations that you should pursue.
And I think that's a good way to transition to kind of talking about the career side of the house and of the world, because there are a lot of good career and professional reasons to pursue more than one concentration. So John, I'm going to put up on the screen the employment stat slides and let you go ahead and talk through it. And I'll save some questions over here for you as you go through.
Sure. Well, fortunately, over the last couple of years, we've been doing pretty well, and that, I think, is attributed to the students that come in, strong admissions efforts, bringing you all in. You're great candidates and very marketable, but I think also on the part of the students, the program office, the faculty, everybody working together to achieve these successful placement numbers. We hope to keep it going forward. So you can see we've done well in terms of full-time placement. We've done really well in terms of internship numbers over the course of the last couple of years. This year we're on track to equal or possibly exceed those numbers.
There you go.
So we've been doing well with all students, and even though it is more difficult for international students to pursue opportunities here in the U.S. because of the lack of all companies sponsoring international students, we've been fortunate in that most of the students, the international students who are or have been pursuing jobs here in the U.S. have been successful as well. So as long as you're willing to put in the effort, as long as you're willing to be somewhat adaptable in terms of your career planning, whether it's geographic or company, industry, functional pursuits, we're very optimistic about your chances here in terms of locating an internship and then later on a full-time job. I just want to reiterate or go back to a point that Harriet made about the pre-MBA English program in June and July. For those students who have very strong accents, or you may feel somewhat insecure about your English skills, because that is an important element for employers and recruiters, I would consider very seriously attending this camp. Students who have attended in the past, I think, have been more successful going forward in terms of dealing with some of the language issues. So just keep that on your radar in case you're considering that as an option for the summer. Let me switch now to some of the activities that the Career Management Center pursues to help international students. I mentioned earlier that unfortunately, not all companies will sponsor international students. The number varies from about 40 to 50%. I wish it were 100, but it's not. So one of the things that the Career Management Center does is to seek out more companies that will sponsor international students. And we go back regularly to some of the employers who have not sponsored international students in the past and ask them whether they would reconsider that policy. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not, but the effort is there to try to provide more opportunities to international students, knowing the uphill battle that they're fighting in that area. Starting with international orientation, believe that's the week of July 20?
The 18th.
18th, when you get on campus on day 2, the Career Center program will start for international students. We'll bring in outside speakers. We'll have interactive activities to introduce you to the job and internship pursuit process, get you acclimated, give you some tips on what you can do to enhance your opportunities. So that'll start early for international students. But even before then, based on a survey that you should be getting over the next couple of weeks, asking you about your functional and industry preferences, you'll be matched with a career coach as well as a peer career advisor to help you work on your resume, get some ideas in place on what you can do between now and the time that you arrive. So please pay attention to that. Fill it out as soon as you can, because the sooner you fill out that survey, the sooner that we can match you up with your career coach and peer career advisor to get you started on the whole process. In addition to our efforts reaching out to companies to find more that sponsor, we have multiple opportunities both in the fall of both years and the spring of both years, dealing with companies, dealing with other MBA programs to afford more opportunities for international students to supplement the number of companies that come on campus that are willing to sponsor international students. So I think there's some good opportunities there. And then Harriet mentioned earlier Career Week, which this year I think will be the second week in October. And during this week, we focus exclusively on students are able to step away from their classes, which are important. Almost as, anyway, they're important. And this is when we have our off-campus treks to Wall Street, to San Francisco, to Seattle. In the past, we've also had treks to Boston and Texas, depending on student interest, where you will visit companies and speak with alums in different industries and areas of the U.S. to focus primarily at that point on the internship search to help you make some connections with these companies and improve your chances of either getting internships with these companies or learning more about the industries and improving your chances of internships with some of their competitors. So that's been a very strong activity for us. It's led to a lot of opportunities for internships and also networking connections for full-time opportunities through these outreach activities. So a lot to think about, a lot going on once you hit the ground, but just know that the process will probably start in June in terms of outreach from a peer career advisor and a career coach to get you working on your resume and start thinking about your career planning.
Wonderful.
That's a mouthful, isn't it? Yes.
We had a few questions come in, so I want to make sure I tackle them. You mentioned a lot about the international employment numbers being very similar, if not the same, as our U.S. students. Are there any companies in particular that have been more favorable, or you've seen higher hiring for international students?
Yes, we have seen higher hiring in certain more industries, I'd say, than companies. Not that I'm pushing students in certain areas, but there has been more success in consulting, financial services, and tech. And as we've, over the last couple of years, more of our students have pursued opportunities out on the West Coast with tech firms. Our alumni connections have improved, so we're finding more and more opportunities in that space. So tech, consulting, financial services are probably the most likely career, or the easier career paths for international students.
That's helpful. And then there was a question related to dress code, and I think that's probably a good question across both. Knowing there's so much career-focused activities and that there will be interviews and things, what's dress code for on-campus interviewing and campus timing? And then what's kind of the general dress code, Harriet?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so for normal class, it's casual. So people will be in jeans and tennis shoes, t-shirts. If there's a guest speaker, if there is a presentation that you're doing, then usually it would be what we call business casual, so like khaki or nice pants. Maybe a jacket but no tie would be appropriate when we have guest speakers, things like that. And then there's business formal, which I'll let John talk about.
That was my
That's your
segue.
cue.
Okay.
That's your
So
cue.
business formal is something similar to what I'm wearing for women, a nice business outfit for did I just say for women?
Yes,
did.
but
I
that was
did.
okay. I was going to correct you. That's all right, too, though.
If
you'd
you
like to
wanna
wear a suit and
dress-
tie, that's fine.
That's an interesting approach for some employers. But suit and tie for men, business formal for women, a nice suit, a nice outfit for on-campus interviews, for some on-campus presentations, depending on the company and the industry, tends to be a little bit more dressed up for the banks and the consulting firms, less so for some of the others. If you're having a coffee chat with an alum off campus, or probably be business casual. Most of our treks are business casual, with the exceptions of Wall Street, because they like to dress up, men and women, in suits. So if you have any questions about what to wear for what event or occasion, just ask your career coach, and we'd be willing to provide the answer.
Wonderful. And I think that's really helpful. This kind of forays into some of the latter questions. And I've put up the slide so you all see it for question and answer. If there's any questions you have related to any of these topics or other topics, as we've been saying, please continue to submit them, and we'll continue to tackle them. There was a question related to support that the school offers for daycare and healthcare activities, and kind of the general, when you're moving to a new place, lifestyle elements. Are there anything you can offer there, Harriet?
So we do have a list on our website again of daycare options that are near campus. If your student is in is school age, you can enroll them in public school here, and each school district does it a little bit differently. So you need to figure out first what zip code you're going to be living in, or actually what your street address is, before we can figure out exactly how you go about enrolling your kindergarten or older child in school. And with daycare, again, there's things here that are half day, there's full day daycare. It all depends on what you need and how old your child is. So all of that, again, is available. Information is available on the website, and then you'll need to dig a little deeper trying to figure out, do you want something closer to school, closer to home if you're not living near campus, and what hours you need, things like that.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful the sooner you can kind of get engaged with the community and start asking questions of the second year students or other individuals of how they went about the process, it would probably be a good kind of fit there. So I'm sure that there's ways for you to connect and kind of figure out, where do some students put their children for daycare versus for school, and but all of that, to your point, has to be done once you know where you're going to be. Yeah, not just in the area, but exactly where you'll be. Our school zoning process in the U.S. is very particular to where you are, not just where you'd like to go.
So like on my not very long street, there are 3 different school districts for the same age. It's kind of strange. But so you have to know, are you in an area like where I am, which you have to know my neighbors, like 8 houses down there, kids would go to a different school. Yeah. So, and then about healthcare. So the university has a healthcare plan that should be coming out soon. They are finalizing the details for next year. As soon as we have it, we will put it up. They do change slightly year to year what the deductible is, who can be covered in terms of what the dependent coverage is. And we have been told it's being reviewed right now, and we should have an answer within the next 10 days to 3 weeks, we hope, about what exactly the plan is. One of the things that I will say is that healthcare in the United States continues to change with what insurance is being offered and what the options are. And we will be making recommendations if there's things that aren't covered by Emory's healthcare based on the whatever they end up deciding for this year. We'll make some recommendations for you of other places to do research if you're looking for a different type of healthcare.
Wonderful. And then there was another question kind of related to planning, still back to lifestyle. How much money should you plan or appropriate for food, for travel, for casual expenses, just in a range for them to kind of think through? I know it's a very broad question.
It's a very broad question. And again, I would probably ask some of your classmates. And, you know, so travel, people really enjoy traveling in the U.S. And there's a huge range where you can take your own tent and camp for $5, or you could stay in the Ritz-Carlton and spend $300. There's just a huge range of what the prices are. You will find that gas prices are very cheap in the United States compared to other places in the world. So if you do decide to buy a car or even rent a car on the weekends to do some exploration, you'll find that that is not a terribly expensive component of your travels. The treks, the students going to treks do spend their own money for those.
Treks, the investment bankers will end up making multiple trips up to New York the fall of their first year. Some of our off-campus career fairs, you're on your own. And so you may want to budget for some of those activities. But again, you could talk to your career coach and peer career advisor about budgets for some of those events and whether or if you should attend as many as are offered.
Wonderful. Another question related to the to kind of financing has to do with the Emory Alliance Credit Union loans. What are any of the prerequisites to get those loans, and can they be finalized before coming to campus? And if so, how soon before? Weeks before or months before?
Okay, so you can request the loan from the Emory Alliance Credit Union as a part of your application process. And we recommend, if you're going to be doing it, that you do that. You cannot finalize the loan until you come to campus. There's some paperwork that you have to sign. So what happens is once the loan is approved but not signed for, they'll send a note to the university saying that it's pending, and the university will know that. And since you're here in July and the tuition isn't really due until mid-August, you have plenty of time to sign your paperwork once you get here. You have to open a bank account with them. I think the minimum deposit is $25 or something like that. But all of that needs to be done once you're here. But you should do the application beforehand. And it's a really easy process because the business school is your loan cosigner. So you don't need a U.S. citizen cosigner. You don't do any credit check because the business school is saying that you are good for the money. So we certainly do all of our best to make sure that we are truthful in that because it's our money too. And the loan amounts are dispersed evenly between the fall and spring semester. So just know that when you are looking at what your loan availability is. And so you will need extra funds when you arrive to pay. Usually there's a deposit for the apartment. Some deposits can be paid online with some of the apartment complexes. They usually do a deposit and first month's rent as you're getting started. And you will have startup costs, again, the deposits for the utilities and for phone and all of that. And my guess is that that will be a couple $1,000s. I would say maybe $2,000 or $3,000. Depends on if you're sharing an apartment and what size you get, things like that.
Right. That's very helpful. And then, related to other activities that students will do or families will do when they're here, what are recommendations on gyms and activities with family and events and things to attend? Any suggestions?
As a student, you have access to Emory's 2 gyms, and you can buy a family membership if you so desire. If you live in an apartment complex, almost all of the apartments have pools and at least small gyms associated with them if they were built in the last probably 30 years. So you'll want to see what the amenities are for the different apartment complexes and make decisions with that too. And then there are other places nearby that are somewhat trendy. There's like a bar, like a dance exercise place. There's places that have Zumba classes. It all depends on what you're interested in doing. And at Emory as well, the students can participate in sort of recreational classes like spinning class or things like that. And there's a small but additional fee for those classes on campus. And then for families, there are so many activities in Atlanta for families. Some of them are things that you might get a membership for. There's a children's museum, obviously any sort of recreational things like going to the pool. There are things that you might go to on a more special occasion, like the Center for Puppetry Arts or the museums. There's Six Flags if you want to go to do roller coasters. There's Whitewater Water Park. And then there's a lot of things. Even the local libraries will have reading days where the kids can come for story hour. There's so many different activities, as well as sports for children as well. So you just need to figure out, what's appropriate for your child's level. Do they want to play t-ball? Do they want to play what we call soccer?
Right.
All of those are available. Tennis, even little bitty tiny golf clubs for little golf players.
And are the funds, is the Woodpeck Center additional funds?
No. Well, you pay it as a part of your fees. Your student fees include use of the gym and all the student activities.
Wonderful. And then last question, back to the Emory Alliance. If someone has received a letter that states the loan was approved, can they use that as proof of funds on the visa documentation?
Yes, they can.
Wonderful. Okay, so I think we tackled 2 quick answers on that one. Any other thoughts or parting things you suggest that we recommend to students before they get here that's not necessarily covered on the website or in Blackboard? Any kind of most important thing you would recommend that they do before they get started here?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is if you have been using your work email as a primary email and it's not going to be available, go ahead now and start thinking about how you're going to keep in contact with everyone, and let people know that you're coming. We're excited about having you, and we want you to announce to your network that you're going to be in school so they don't lose track of you. They can be good contacts in the future, so you want to be sure that people are knowing what you're doing. Update your LinkedIn profile. If you are an international student and English is not the language you communicate in normally, be sure that in LinkedIn and on Facebook that you add English characters to your name so that as you start making relationships here, people can know who you are, or at least be able to read your name. And, what else would I say? Take a little vacation before you come, because once you're here, it's really, really busy. And feel organized. If you're going to get a new computer, be sure that you spend a little time with it and get it set up. If you're going to switch computer systems, anything like that, know that getting a system in place can be really helpful. So think about that before you come.
Wonderful. John, any points from you?
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
I would, as part of the survey that we're sending out, we'll give you information about a career inventory assessment called Career Leader. So that may help you decide, I know I don't like accounting, but I'm not sure what I want to go into next. It may help you with some of those directional choices. So please take that. It takes about an hour, and it's really worthwhile, and it's something you can discuss with your career coach even before you arrive. So I think that'll be helpful. Resume preparation is going to be important even before you get here. So as you kind of wind things up at your job, think about some of your accomplishments. Start talking to your supervisor. Results are really important for a lot of recruiters. So think about what you've done at certainly your current job, your previous job, not just what you did, but what you accomplished in those roles. And then start looking at the Wall Street Journal regularly and other industry periodicals to get immersed in what's going on, particularly in U.S. business, because that type of conversation is going to be very common, both talking with employer representatives, alums, classmates, and certainly in the classroom. So start studying up even before you get here.
And John, is there a list of companies that you would recommend looking at for sponsoring international students, or should they look at the general list of hiring companies?
I would, because that list is, we always want to know about the list of companies that sponsor, and we in the Career Center are as interested in that as much as the international students. It's very fluid. It'll change year to year. So I would just, if you're most interested on getting a job as opposed to one you're most comfortable in or really want to pursue in the U.S., start looking into a list of companies in those three industries that I mentioned earlier: tech, consulting, financial services. But even within those three industries, there will be companies, unfortunately, that don't sponsor. But I would not look, it's very difficult to find that information online anyway about whether a company sponsors or not. So I wouldn't worry so much about that at this point. Focus more on your career direction, your career agenda, and the resume prep, and we'll work on the company list when you arrive.
Wonderful. Great advice. Two more questions that have to do more with the nuts and bolts of getting here. First, are international driver's license things you can use in Georgia, or do you need a U.S.? And then things like laptops or computer bags or anything like that. Yep. What kind of necessities should they plan to bring with them?
Yep. Okay, so for driver's license, if you have a driver's license that has English on it or an international driver's license, you can drive for up to a year in Georgia with that as a student. So one of the things that you can do is you can rent a car. If you are going to buy a car, eventually you will need a Georgia driver's license because you have to register the car in Georgia, and in order to do the license plate, that's the physical thing on the car, you need to have a Georgia driver's license. You need to be insured, so if you're renting a car, your insurance can come either from your credit card, because sometimes they include rental insurance, or you can buy insurance from the rental company. If you purchase a car, you'll need to be getting your own car insurance that will cover you and the car as you're using it.
Wonderful.
So, like I said, it takes a little while to get the license. So if you are coming, even if you know you're going to buy a car, you might want to think about renting for the first couple weeks so that you don't run into a time crunch where you have a car and you're no longer allowed to drive it because the license plate hasn't been switched over. So, and a lot of our students are using Uber, which you may have heard of, is a car, it's kind of like a private taxi service. And I used it for the first time this year, so I'm moving up in the world. I just got
Uber
a cell
right.
phone, so now I've used Uber. And like I said, also the Emory shuttle buses are near campus, and they are a great way to get around as well. We have shuttle buses that run on the weekend to shopping centers and to the grocery store on weeknights, so that is helpful. And then for laptops, so we have students who have both PC-based and Mac laptops. So for the Mac users, you need to be able to run Parallels or some other system that allows you to run Windows software on your Mac, because a lot of the ISOM, the information systems classes, run software that only runs on the PC environment. So if you're comfortable with that, then you can use your Mac. Just know that the Excel version on the PC, as well as some of this other software, is easier to use than the Mac versions. So the recommended computer would be PC-based, and there are some configurations, again, on our website, I'll be sure that they're posted, that talk about how fast it should be and how big it should be, and I don't know what they are. We do have students who are starting to get some of the tablets and using tablets in place of computers. Some of the fancier tablets that do have the touchscreen but come with a keyboard is something that you could think about. Most of our students are still using just a regular laptop that they take to class with them. In classes, some of the classes do use software actually in the class where you're doing something along with the professor, especially in some of the more technical classes. And so students will bring their laptops to those. For some of the classes, they're really discussion-based, and the faculty want to be sure that everyone is thoroughly engaged in the discussion, and they may have a policy of no laptops open. So just be aware the faculty member is allowed to decide how technology is used in their classroom.
Wonderful. And then one more question that kind of speaks to individuals who are not career seeking. So if you're a sponsored student, both John and Harriet, any thoughts on activities or things that they can get involved in specific to the program?
Right. So for students who are company sponsored and aren't seeking, you still may be very involved in some of the clubs, like you may be working in the financial industry and you want to learn more about U.S. business practices. They have speakers, there's activities, there are research projects that students might want to do related to their home company. What else there's just a lot of sort of support within the industry. So learning more about the industry in the U.S. might be something that could be really beneficial for you, especially if you ever get placed in the United States as part of your rotation. And we do have quite a few students whose companies have offices in the U.S. and they are in New Jersey or they're in California, and they are here either immediately after school or they get rotated back because they've got the knowledge of the U.S. industry and their English skills are really great, and they know that they'll be able to adapt easily to living in those areas. We do a couple of special programming options, usually 1 or 2 things each semester that are specifically organized just for the sponsored students.
Wonderful.
So,
John, anything else?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely piggyback on Harriet's comments. I think one of the reasons you're here is to make yourself more marketable vis-a-vis your awareness and knowledge of the U.S. business climate and what goes on here and how it operates. So through the Career Management Center activities, we have company presentations every fall. I would encourage you to attend several of them, not only to suck up the knowledge that the recruiters are passing out in terms of what their company does, but spend a little time afterwards with some of the alums and learn more about what they do, what their roles are, some of the inside knowledge about some of this company information that then you can take back, or like Harriet said, utilize if you're going to be placed here at any point after graduation. So certainly take advantage of that. And then the other comment that Harriet made about the English awareness and education, I always tell the international students during the CMC orientation to immerse yourself as much as you can in the American culture, in the American exchange conversations. The more you can become more global through your awareness of the English language, of the state of business outside of your home country, you're just going to increase your career mobility either within your firm or afterwards when you move to another firm. So learn English, practice English, don't just stay within your little cocoon of your country mates, and just take advantage of your time here. There's a lot to learn, a lot to absorb, and we're here to help you with those types of activities.
Yeah, and I think Harriet mentioned it before, but pre-MBA English language program is open to all of our international students. So there are lots of opportunities to take advantage of that. And then just be involved, as you mentioned, with other students who are native English speakers will be a good opportunity for you to practice and refine not just how you speak or what you say, but a lot of the colloquialisms and language portions and cultures that are specific to the U.S. We are sometimes quirky like that in the sort of way that we say things and way that we talk about things, and it does take time to pick up. The more that you are in natural conversation with individuals, the easier it will be for you to sort of digest those things.
Yeah. We do have a Conversation Partners program, so that you'll be able to participate in. That's across the university. So there's things like that. There's a soccer tournament that's going to be on April 1st. So there are a lot of cultural awareness that happens across the university.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I thank you both, Harriet and John and Kate in the back, for kind of fielding these questions. Hopefully we got everything answered. We were feverishly throwing them back and forth between the back room and here. But there's still plenty of opportunity for you to engage with Kate, with Harriet, with John, with others as you get ready to make this very important and very valuable decision. Hopefully you will invest in yourself by making the choice to join us here at the business school. And we look forward to seeing you some morning, afternoon, or evening upcoming. Again, congratulations on your admissions, and we hope to see you soon.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.